You ever walk into a room and just feel that all eyes are on you? Not because you did something crazy, not because you're famous, but because people are trying to figure you out. Like, what the hell are you doing here? That is the feeling Ellie and Jade Johnson had the second they stepped into that damn courtroom. Now let me introduce you to our two troublemakers, Ellie and Jade, 22-year-old black twins from Atlanta, raised on good manners, sharp wit, and the unwavering belief that justice isn't just a word white folks throw around when it benefits them. These girls, they weren't some TikTok activists crying about injustice from the safety of their bedrooms. They were the real deal. Straight A students, top of their class in law school, grinding their way into a system that was designed to chew them up and spit them out. And here they were, finally getting their first big break in court. They'd worked their asses off on this case. Fraud, embezzlement, the whole 9 yards. The defendant, a slimy old bastard named Richard Carmichael. Some so-called respectable businessman who'd been robbing people blind for years. They had everything they needed to nail him. Witnesses, documents, evidence so tight you could bounce a quarter off it. But what they didn't have? A fair fight. Because the man sitting on that judge's bench, Walter Grayson, was the definition of everything wrong with the system. 67 years old, white as printer paper, and about as open-minded as a goddamn rock. If racism had a spokesperson, this man would be on the front cover of Good Old Boys Monthly with a cigar in one hand and a Confederate flag in the other. Ellie and Jade had heard stories about him. Black lawyers always warned about his court being a slaughterhouse for anyone who wasn't the right shade of beige. But seeing it firsthand, that was a different beast. The second they stepped up, it was like the man was personally offended that they dared breathe the same air as him. "State your names." Jade cleared her throat, standing tall. "Jade Johnson, Your Honor." Ellie stepped forward. "Ellie Johnson, representing the prosecution." Judge Grayson stared at them for exactly 2 seconds before exhaling like they had just wasted his time by existing. Johnson? That's cute. You two sisters?" Ellie didn't flinch. "Twins, Your Honor." "Twins." His voice had this condescending edge, like he was forcing himself to acknowledge them as people. "Isn't that something? Well, Miss Johnson and Miss Johnson," he gave a tight-lipped smile. "Let's keep this professional. I expect you both to be on your best behavior. This is a courtroom, not a—" Oh, he was about to say it. Jade cocked her head. "Not a what?" Grayson's smile didn't waver, but his eyes narrowed just a bit. "Not a classroom. I assume this is your first big case?" Ellie clenched her jaw. She'd heard subtle racism before, but this wasn't subtle. This was a man playing God in his own little kingdom, making sure the right people knew their place. "We're fully capable of handling this trial, Your Honor." Ellie's voice was sharp, precise. No emotion. Grayson just chuckled, shaking his head like she was a child who had just announced she wanted to be an astronaut. "Well, let's see about that." And that's when the real circus started. Every single move Ellie and Jade made, he shot it down. They presented evidence? Irrelevant. They called a witness? I don't see how this adds to the case. They made a valid objection? Overruled. Meanwhile, the defense attorney, some smug-looking white dude named Bradley Harper, who had the personality of a boiled potato, was practically getting free rein. He'd object just for fun, and Grayson would nod along like they were in some country club meeting instead of a damn courtroom. At one point, Jade leaned over to Ellie and muttered, "Dude, what the fuck is this? Are we in an actual trial or a live taping of How to Get Away with White Privilege?" Ellie exhaled through her nose, gripping her pen so hard she thought it might snap in half. And then, Grayson decided to put on a show. They had a star witness, a former employee of Carmichael's, who had been threatened into silence for years but finally grew a spine and decided to expose the corruption. The second this man opened his mouth, Grayson pounced. "I don't find this witness credible." "Excuse me?" Ellie shot up. "Your Honor, this witness has first-hand knowledge of—" "And I have first-hand knowledge of what a credible witness looks like." His smirk was infuriating. "And this one? He looks unreliable." The unspoken part of that sentence? "He's black, and I don't trust him." Jade lost it. "Oh, so let me get this straight. When a white businessman lies, it's miscommunication, but what? But when a black man tells the truth, he's unreliable?" Grayson's eyes flashed. "Miss Johnson, I'd watch your tone if I were you." "Oh, I bet you would." Dead silence. Even Harper, the boiled potato of a defense lawyer, looked a little uncomfortable. Ellie felt a fire in her chest. This wasn't just about Carmichael anymore. This was about every black lawyer, every black defendant, every black person who had to stand in front of this asshole and be reminded that their word was worth less. She and Jade shared a look, and that's when it clicked. If this man wanted to play dirty, they'd play smarter. Ellie casually reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Jade did the same. They hit record. Grayson didn't notice. Of course he didn't. He was too busy enjoying himself. That was his first mistake. And by the time he realized what was happening, it was already too late. You ever watch a rigged game and just wait for the moment the cheater realizes he's been caught? That delicious, slow dawning realization that maybe, just maybe, he ain't as untouchable as he thought? That was the moment Ellie and Jade were waiting for. But let's rewind a bit. Because before they could wreck Grayson's entire existence, they had to survive the next round of his bullshit. Grayson was fully enjoying himself, and why wouldn't he? The man was living his best life, playing king in his own little courtroom kingdom where facts didn't matter and justice was just another word for what benefits rich white men. The case was supposed to be open and shut. They had bank records showing Carmichael had stolen millions. They had emails where he basically confessed in the most arrogant way possible. They even had a whistleblower who risked his damn life to testify. But none of that mattered, because every time Ellie and Jade tried to move forward, Grayson found a way to slap them down. Denied. Irrelevant. Objection sustained. At this point, the courtroom felt less like a legal proceeding and more like a bad improv show where Grayson was the only one allowed to talk. Jade leaned over to Ellie, her voice dry as hell. Dude, I swear to God, if this man had been the judge in the civil rights era, we'd still be drinking from separate water fountains. Ellie smirked, but her fingers drummed on the table. She wasn't just pissed, she was calculating. Because what Grayson didn't know was that they weren't just two young black women trying to prove themselves. They were trained by the best, and he was about to find out exactly what that meant. Grayson was getting bolder. He was comfortable now, slipping into that special brand of smugness that only comes when someone is too powerful for too long. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, looking bored out of his damn mind as Ellie called another key witness. A forensic accountant, literally a dude whose entire job is to find financial fraud. This man had the receipts, cold, hard, facts, and the second he started talking, Grayson did the most Grayson thing possible. Objection. Ellie's head snapped up. Your Honor, we haven't even asked a question yet. Grayson gave her the whitest of white man smirks. I can already tell where this is going. Not relevant. Jade fucking scoffed. Sir, we literally have the stolen money trail on paper. How is that not relevant? Miss Johnson, I suggest you watch your tone. There it was again. That know your place bullshit. Ellie clenched her jaw so hard her teeth ached. She could see it so clearly now. This wasn't just about the case. This wasn't about them being young lawyers. This was about control. Grayson wasn't just trying to discredit them. He was trying to humiliate them, trying to break them down so they'd lose confidence, so they'd start questioning themselves. Too bad for him, they were built different. At this point, Ellie and Jade weren't just pissed off, they were fucking done. So they switched tactics. Jade adjusted the mic, making sure everyone in the courtroom could hear her loud and clear. Your Honor, could you clarify something for the record? Grayson blinked. Clarify what, Miss Johnson? Are you dismissing this expert witness because he's a forensic accountant? Or are you dismissing him because he's black? The room went dead silent. You could have heard a damn pin drop. Even Harper, the boiled potato defense attorney, looked like he wanted to slide under his table. Grayson's face twitched. Excuse me? His voice was tight, controlled. It's a simple question, Jade shrugged. Because so far, the only people you've called unreliable in this courtroom have all had melanin. Ellie almost grinned. That was the thing about racists. They could be bold as hell when they were comfortable. But the second you shine a light on them, they start sweating. Grayson wasn't sweating yet, but he was definitely feeling the heat. And that's when they pulled out the real move. Ellie casually tapped her phone, which was still recording, loudly, just enough for Grayson to notice. His eyes flickered down to the screen just for a second, but Ellie saw it, and she knew. He knew. And for the first time since this trial started, Judge Walter Grayson looked worried. Oh, but they weren't done yet. Not even close. Because now it was time to turn up the heat. You ever see a man realize in real time that he just fucked up? That slow, creeping horror when it dawns on him, oh shit, they got me? That was Grayson. His cocky smirk, gone. His relaxed posture, stiff as a corpse. His face, turning the same shade as expired mayonnaise. Ellie and Jade, cool as hell. They didn't say they were recording. They didn't need to. The way Ellie tapped her phone, the way Jade leaned back like she had all the time in the world, Grayson knew. And now? Now he was rethinking every racist, condescending word that had left his mouth. For the first time all trial, Grayson hesitated. "Miss Johnson, I don't appreciate your tone." "Oh, I bet you don't." Jade crossed her arms. "Kinda like how we don't appreciate you turning this trial into a damn minstrel show." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Even the bailiff looked uncomfortable. Ellie pressed on. "Your Honor, let's cut the bullshit. Every legal expert in this room knows you're blocking our case for one reason and one reason only." "Careful, Miss Johnson." His voice was tight. "No, you be careful." Jade smiled. "Because right now, you're looking real unethical and real viral." Grayson's eyes flickered to their phones again. He knew exactly what that meant. They weren't just two pissed-off young lawyers. They were pissed-off young lawyers with receipts. And then, the final nail in the coffin. The courtroom doors opened. A voice boomed. "That's enough." Everyone turned, and there he was. The last person Grayson wanted to see. Grayson's face drained of color so fast you'd think someone unplugged his life support. Because standing in that doorway, towering, unbothered and very much in charge, was Michael Johnson. Yeah, that Michael Johnson, federal judge, legal legend. The kind of man who could walk into any courtroom in America and have people sitting up straight real quick. And oh yeah, Ellie and Jade's father. Grayson blinked. His lips parted, then shut. His brain was malfunctioning in real time. "Sir, Enough, Walter." Johnson's voice was smooth, but heavy, like a hammer right before it swings. Ellie and Jade didn't say a word. They didn't have to. The tension in the room was thick as hell. Every lawyer, every juror, even the bailiff knew. Grayson was done. Johnson stepped forward, slow, deliberate. "Do you really think I wouldn't be watching?" Boom, checkmate. Grayson opened his mouth, probably to bullshit his way out, but Johnson cut him off with just a look. "I've seen enough." Translation? "Your career just flatlined, my guy." Outside the courtroom, Ellie exhaled, a slow, satisfied smirk creeping onto her face. Jade nudged her. "Told you this was going to be fun." Ellie chuckled. "Oh yeah, best first case ever." Because justice, it just got served.